Coming off their bye week, the New Orleans Saints have 7 games left in the 2025 NFL season. Look, while playoffs for the 2-8 Saints are basically out of reach, let's be honest, those remaining games are an addition for players to gain experience, continue development. Essentially, there's a group of players that are going to be auditioning for their future on the Saints roster. And we break down 7 players, possibly 8 if we can count a potential 2026 free agent. Could be a wild card. These guys could lock down core spots on the rebuild, and some of them mean potentially contract extensions over the next year. We'll also talk about 4 honorable mention players who haven't seen a lot of action, but are starting to get increased snaps. They could use these 7 games to propel themselves into that same conversation. I'm Tim. Let's talk Saints. The franchise position, obviously. Quarterback's the most important position in sports. And so we're talking about Tyler Shough here, and can he handle it? He's got 7 games left to prove he's the future QB1 that we want, that he's got the material, he's got everything he needs to be able to do it. Over these 7 games, what we need to see is improvement in avoiding regression. He is coming off a very good game against Carolina. Before that, he had a great moment, 2 minutes against the Rams, which is turning into be one of the elite teams in the NFL right now. Much like Spencer Rattler came off the New England game with his best performance ever as a starting NFL quarterback, and he regressed soon after. Bad decisions, bushels of turnovers in the next 2 games that ultimately, or 2.5 games, ultimately got him benched. Opened the door for Tyler Shough. He doesn't continue to improve and actually regresses and starts making bad decisions, starts turning the ball over, or not doing the things that got him to this point already. But on top of which, he's got to start doing the things that he hasn't been doing very good better. Again, 7 games to prove it. Also need to see, because this is going to happen. Without a doubt, this will. Telling you right now it's going to happen. It happened to Rattler, and it cost him his spot. Tyler Shough's going to have to get ready for adversity and then make adjustments to overcome it. Look, he's played roughly 10 quarters of football. Getting to the point now where there's enough film floating around the NFL on him. Smart defenses, coordinators, good defenses, even average defenses are going to start picking up on certain things he does or doesn't do. And they're going to start game planning accordingly to affect him and basically force him into the bad decisions, the turnovers, the bad play, inefficient offense, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's coming. Shows he can deal with that and make adjustments. And a lot of times these adjustments can't be from week to week. It's with Kellen Moore and the coaching staff having to come up with it on the sideline and the quarterback being able to handle it. Those are the things that if he doesn't show that over the next 7 weeks, I'm not sure where we go in the quarterback position. Whether Rattler gets a second chance or not, I don't know. But ultimately, if neither one of them have stepped up so far to the point where the coaching staff wants them to be, we could be right back in the top 10, top 5 next year grabbing a quarterback. May not be the worst thing in the world, but the better thing in the world is, and right now, we're going to talk about Tyler Shough because the ball is in his court, is to do these things over these 7 games. Like I said, show, hey, I'm QB1 material, where we can take that awesome pick and start addressing some other positions in need because we've got plenty of them. And the thing is, no matter which way it boils down, no matter which way it goes, that high draft pick, you've got to bring in an impact player with it. Now, there are 3 areas where I think Tyler Shough has been very, very good. Still needs to get better at them, but it's a good starting point. One of them is, look, his ability to work in the pocket has really impressed me, whether he's stepping up sliding to the side, or even escaping the pocket on a rollout, right or left, and being able to accurately throw a ball on time, on target, downfield. And we're not just talking about having to throw a check down or a short pass, hoping we can pick up the yardage we need. He's shown the ability he can push the ball downfield, intermediate and deep ball if he has to while he's doing this. That's a way to open your offense up when your quarterback, because basically he's doing that because he's overcoming either offensive line deficiency in blocking or the fact that he didn't make a good pre-snap read and got himself in a bad position. Well, when you can do stuff like handle the pocket and throw accurately downfield as guys are breaking open as the play is breaking down, you can bail yourself out of a lot of trouble. He also has the ability to, it seems, to really recognize when he's got favorable one-on-one matchups with his playmakers, where the coverage is going to dictate my guy's got to beat their guy. And he seems very willing to test that resolve and put a ball up, even when logic says, hey, it's 3rd and 4, you only need 4, but I've got the play I need to Olave over the top for a 62-yard touchdown, and then back it up with making the throw he needs to make. So we're not all going, why are you throwing the ball deep when you only need it 4 yards? It's a little gunslinger mentality, I'll admit. But if he's able to pull it off and not do dumb things and put himself in bad positions, that's what QB1s do. And I need to keep seeing more and more of that. And what I really like about him that in this short span seems at any level, he seems to be very good at the expression is read the grass, not the guy. But basically that means anticipating the area where that receiver is gonna get open, giving him throws to that area where puts him in a position. I'm the only one that can make the catch. Defender is not gonna be involved on this play, or even better, I'm the only one that's gonna be able to make the catch and turn this thing upfield and get some yards after the catch. So far, I'm liking what I see in that. Now, look, thing is, he's only really shown that in 4 quarters of football against Carolina, and like we said, about 2 minutes against the Rams. And in those games in Carolina, a lot of that was on third down conversions, and not really on first and second down. Great things to have, because if your QB1 again is leading a team downfield to get yards and points in a 2-minute drill, or being able to efficiently convert third downs, whether they're short, intermediate, or long, it's 2 things you need to have in your bag of tricks as a quarterback if you're going to be the guy. So he's shown that ability. But what I really need to see in these next 7 games is that same ability, all this stuff that we're talking about that he did well in 2-minute drill, that he did well in third downs in Carolina. I need to see it on first and second down, because that's where you're really going to make your bones. You start pressuring defenses where, man, at any minute, this guy's going to hook up with Olave downfield, or this guy's going to find a wide open Juwan Johnson where they can go make plays, or Alvin Kamara out the backfield. You're really having your quarterback put a lot of pressure on the defense. Again, that's QB1 stuff. So if he wants to be the guy, if he wants to be the franchise player, and I use that term very loosely because we're talking about the franchise position. So if you're the quarterback, you are in the start job, you become the QB1, that's on the road to being the franchise player. A lot more work needs to be done before I'm willing to throw that label on you. But if you screw up these 7 games, it's going to be a real question mark whether you ever get an opportunity to wear it in New Orleans. The franchise protectors. Obviously, we're talking about offensive line, but look, if you got a starting quarterback that's going to be a QB1, potentially your franchise guy if everything turns out right, or you've got a great running back or playmaking receivers or whatever, None of that does you a whole lot of good if you can't handle the stuff you need to handle up front. And I think we're well on our way on our tackles. We had a lot of hope this was going to work out, and I think we're seeing some of that hope kind of building into going, maybe we really have something there. I think Calvin Banks Jr. had a very solid rookie year, and I think he's done it kind of quietly because I think a lot of the Saints media and fans recognize, man, he's playing some very solid football in a very tough position, and they don't give him a lot of help. He does deal with a lot of one-on-ones over there without the added tight end chip compared to some other young offensive linemen. Fuaga on the right-hand side, that's back where he is, his natural right tackle. And despite injuries, I think he's been very solid too. And I think if he was fully 100% healthy, and he started getting dinged up in camp before the season even started, we may even be seeing more out of him than we're actually getting right now. So there's 7 more games of this trial of Banks and Fuaga, both former first round picks. So this trial is going to last a while. They would get another season normally. But over the next 7 games, I want it confirmed. Okay. I want to roll into 2026 season going, you know what we have? We have Armstead and Ramczyk 2.0. Entirely possible. And I'll tell you why. They really have their chance to establish themselves as just that bookend duo, that anchor duo, however you want to refer to it, with 2 top tackles in the NFL. You can do that on an offensive line. It gets a lot easier to rebuild the thing because now you're going outside to in. You still have 7 games to find out for sure. And I don't need it nailed down now. But when we roll into 2026, what I'd like to see is look at those 2 young men and go, we're set. We may have to go figure out the other 3 spots depending on what happens, but we're fine right there. And we're fine right there on 2 rookie deals. We still don't, as long as we keep them healthy, we're not going to have to worry about that for at least a couple of years. Very few NFL teams can say that. Now, just their numbers this year, and it's a little easy to find a decent metric, I think, in pass blocking, and I think that's probably what most people are really concerned about when you're talking about your offensive tackles. So, through 409 passing snaps for Calvin Banks Jr., and that's 7th overall for tackles in the NFL. And in this scenario, we're combining left tackles and right tackles. He's given up 31 total pressures, and that's a combination of sacks, hits, and hurries. It gives him a 95.5 pass blocking efficiency rate, which is basically 95.5% of his plays, he doesn't give up a sack, a hit, or a hurry. Now, going into a deep dive into PFF metrics, they have something that I like a lot as a measurement is what they call true set. Basically, complete pass pro. They're throwing out plays that have rollouts, play actions, RPOs, screens. They're just trying to whittle it down to basically man on man. Everybody knows the offense is throwing the ball. There's no eye candy. There's no trickeration or anything going on. That offensive line has got to block whatever the defense is sending at them because the quarterback's got to get the ball downfield. And true set, his efficiency is 92.6%. Fuaga, less snaps because of the injuries, 303 passing snaps, so over 100 less than Banks. He's still number 43 overall in total passing snaps among all offensive tackles in the NFL, giving up 22 pressures. It's a 95.6 efficiency rating for his pass blocking. True set that dips down to 93.3%. Most tackles, you will see a drop between the two once you look at the true set compared to the everything set. It's not that bad of a drop off. There's a lot of offensive linemen whose drop offs is a lot lower, but you're talking about less than 3 percentage points, both of them, 2.9 and 2.3. Probably a number right now at this stage in their career, and especially with everything else going on with our team, you're probably going to leave that in the acceptable margin of error. But both numbers, whether you're talking about the total pass block efficiency and true set, have to get better. And I think they will, because I think they're really good for a rookie and a second year guy. Now, Will Campbell leads the NFL in pass snaps for tackles, 425. So I just looked at tackles with a minimum of 220 pass blocking snaps, about half of what Will Campbell has. Basically, he's played at least half the games in the NFL to kind of give him a ranking, if you will. And overall, lineman tackles with 220 passing snaps or more. Banks is 95.5 pass blocking efficiency rate is 48th. Fuaga's 95.6 is 47th. You have 64 starting tackles in the NFL. You got two guys solidly in that number. You look at the true set, like I said, Banks drops about 2.9%, Fuaga 2.3%. Like to get that gap closed, but it's not a huge drop off. It's not every other play drop off when they're having to face pass pro situations as opposed to some of the stuff offensive coordinators can do by design and scheme to help them out. When you look at the run numbers, that one's tougher. I don't know if there's really a good single metric like pass blocking efficiency to kind of talk about how your pass blockers are doing. Just kind of grab, let's see what the PFF run grade looks like. And Banks is 67 grade on 232 snaps, which is number 30 in the NFL in number of snaps. Fuaga, 68.1 on 170 run snaps. That's number 27 overall in the NFL. Penei Sewell has the most run block snaps out of any tackle, 245. So kind of took about half of his snaps at 120 run snaps. So Fuaga 68.1 run blocking puts him number 27th overall. Banks is 67, puts him number 30 overall. Tackles with 120 more snaps. It's pretty good spots to be in. Run wise, you could sort of reasonably say they're in the top half of 32 tackles, starting tackles. 47 and 48, they're still in the top 62. It's a good combination of numbers, I think, to have to show they may not, and they aren't, the best tackles in the NFL. But for two young guys, they're right in the mix, I feel like, of where they should be approving. We are starting tackles in the NFL. We're young. We're only going to get more experience. We're only going to get better. Those numbers are going to go up. Now, the snap counts don't necessarily reflect the true picture, so we have to acknowledge that. My example would be, and I actually don't know how many snaps he has right now because it doesn't really matter. Tristan Wirfs, Tampa Bay's left tackle, has missed an awful lot of time due to injury, especially earlier in the season. So he may, by this point, have gotten his snap counts above my arbitrary half of the guy with the most. But it doesn't matter because we know he could have 4 snaps right now. He's still one of the best tackles in the league, period, bar none, and clearly better than either one of our guys. So my little scenario here with the snap counts, please do take with a grain of salt. But again, I think just off of a baseline, the best you can do comparison of a lot of players, and some of which are going to not have a lot of snaps or a lot of games due to injury, but yeah, they're one of the top tackles in the NFL, and healthy, they're going to be up in that number, and our guys are going to slide down a little bit. I don't think there's enough of them to slide our guys down to where we're questioning. I really don't. So, rookie on the left side, second year guy on the right side. I think you got 2 legit starting NFL tackles. And I think with the continued experience and development, you can give these guys an opportunity that 2 or 3 years from now, they will be talked about like people talk about Tristan Wirfs now, or Teron Armstead or Ryan Ramczyk just a few seasons ago. That's the hope. 7 games left, I think, clearly, based on 10 games they played so far this year, and also include Fuaga's season last year at left tackle, I think you can get a pretty good idea as soon as the 2025 season ends that we're fine. We got our two guys. We don't have to worry about finding them. We just got to worry about the experience, the development, making them better. The proven playmaker. It's Chris Olave. Now, if you haven't noticed so far, this is where the caveat may come in, but I'm focusing this mostly, well, pretty much exclusively on rookies or veteran players that are still on their rookie deal, because getting them to the point where we're going to build around them, it's good for two reasons. One, obviously, a young player, you plan on having them around for multiple years where you can keep building around them. Two, probably more importantly for the Saints issue, you have them on the cheap since they're on their rookie deals. So you can fix, salary cap problems, all that other stuff, and be able to make meaningful moves in free agency without keep crushing your own cap and winding up in a position where we ran for the last 3 or 4 years. So building around these guys is what you need. Olave is technically on that, his rookie deal, but there's been talk about the extension. It sounds like it's going to be a go. And I think these 7 games are going to be very, very important for him and for the organization to lock it down and go, he's our number one. He's taken over that spot. We're going to give him the number one money, and he's going to be the focal point of the receiving core. And I think it needed to be done. Basically, the runway is clear for Chris Olave. I think we kind of got ourselves into a trap. It was the thinking of with him and Shaheed, well, we've got a 1A and a 1B. Something that was very valuable several seasons ago in the NFL, where passing was off the chart. As you get more and more to the passing game is kind of coming back down to where it was for the 2000 teens and the very beginning of the 2020s. And the running game's becoming a little more important, a little more involved in catching up. I think it's more important instead of having the ability to have multiple receivers because you're going to be throwing the ball that much and that deep downfield and pushing the envelope in the passing game to being a lot more balanced and needing a balanced receiving core that complements each other. And Shaheed and Olave are kind of fighting over the same airspace, literally. They're both air yard guys. I think they definitely have some ability in the right situations to do some yards after catch. Both have the ability, especially Olave, he's shown it, can make some tough contested catches, can do some things really, really good for you. But optimally, you would want either one of those guys flying downfield on a regular basis. And if you have them both in the game, really stretching defenses. But again, harder and harder to do that on a consistent basis. You had to clear the runway. Olave's younger. I think that was, and on that rookie deal, I think that had a lot to do with it. And you got some draft capital for Shaheed. If that had gone the other way and they decided, no, we're going to keep Shaheed and extend him and trade Olave for draft capital, I'd be okay with it in a sense. I think Olave is the better choice of the two, but either way, I think you need to boil it down to one. You need to develop receivers that complement each other, complement what you're trying to do in the offense. Because you're not going to keep repeatedly throwing intermediate deep routes all game long like was happening 2017, 2018, 2015, 2020 with these 4,000, 5,000 yard seasons and these massive touchdown rates where multiple receivers were grabbing double digit touchdowns. The game's evolved and changed a little bit since then. And I think Olave, especially now, the way the game is kind of calming down in the passing game, is a perfect complement to be that number one guy. Really, I'm going to be the guy looking for the air yards. Now, it's only one game, but in Carolina, he did an awful lot of that. He was working that intermediate, that deep space, getting open, making catches. the insane one-handed catches is frankly quite off the charts. And now you kind of get him into that role. Seems like he can do it. I think a lot of people, I was one included, that went, yeah, I think as he develops, he can be that guy. And I think he's got 7 more games to prove it to himself, to prove it to the club, to prove it to us, everybody involved, where the whole fan base, along with the organization, the players and the coaches and the front office and everybody goes, he's the guy. Now, look, got to mention it. The one downside on him, obviously, is the concussion issue. Seems to be doing better in that regards, and everybody seems to be less concerned about it. Great. Let's keep it that way. Goes back to our discussion all the way back up the rundown sheet to number 1, the franchise position. Whoever that QB1 is, and right now, again, looks like Tyler Shough is, you have to keep that throwing the ball to space, reading the grass, not the guy, being on time, on target, and giving him the chance to catch balls away from defenders. So we don't keep putting him in the position where somebody can earhole him with a helmet and we lose him for a month. So I feel fairly confident in that regard. That would be the one drawback. But outside of that, I truly believe you've got the air yard, catch the ball downfield type number 1 receiver in Olave. I mean, he can fit in what Kelvin Moore's trying to do, especially if Kellen Moore finds a quarterback he wants to run and operate the offense. So the defensive foundation. Um, Want to have a great defense, you got to build the trenches. It's no different than if you want a great offense, you got to build in the trenches. The cupboard is kind of bare as far as the young player, that rookie deal guy, the guy that's still on his rookie deal, basically a player of 3-4 years or less experience that you're looking at and going, we need him. We need to get him locked in and locked down. Bryan Bresee is about the best you can come up with, and it's not a bad start, especially with his pass rush ability. It's always been very good. 5 and 8 sacks his first 2 seasons. He's only at 2 right now, but his pass rush metrics, his pressure rate and everything else, his win rate, fairly close to what he did the first 2 years. He's still something you have to, if you're in offense and passing situation and he's in there in that interior, you got to account for him. You got to make sure he's blocked. He can cause you problems. And even if he's not getting the sack, he's the type of guy that can spring it open from somebody else coming on the edge. So let's talk about the edge for a second. We signed Chase Young to the big deal this offseason, kind of sending the message and the indication he's the guy we're going to build around on the edge. We've got to put that piece next to him from the interior. I think going in, I was one person. I think there was a lot of fans who were, this is Bresee's year with the new defense. Moving to that 3 technique and basically playing in between Godshaw and an edge rusher like Young. Granderson and Cam have both played fairly well there. So he could find his niche of, I'm this guy dealing with the tackle, either inside, head up, or outside in that area, depending on the defensive scheme. It's experience in the 4-3 when we go to that even man look. But along those terms, we know the pass rush was going to be there, needed the run defense to catch up. And I think it's gotten better this year. He had a monster game, really, really good game against the Giants. Had some honorable mention good games. Carolina last week was one of them, but he still had some games that we saw in his first 2 years where he's almost a non-factor in the run game. And to be the guy that we want to build around on that defensive line, we need to see more consistent. There's other guys that can do the run defense better, but maybe not pass rush like him. So it's all piece of a puzzle. But if he could get that run defense component up over these next 7 games and you start feeling better about it, put himself in the position that basically Chris Olave is in right now that we just talked about. 3 years in, roll it into the 4th year. Looks like he's going to get his extension, and hey, you're our guy at receiver. So it wouldn't kill Bresee if he doesn't lock it down in these 7 games, but it would make life a lot easier for everybody if he does. There's guy I think you got to keep your eye on in that interior. Other young players that just really aren't there right now. Broughton probably going to be a person that or a player that may one day grow into this role, but he has a lost rookie season due to injury. Boyd, we've been waiting on, and I mean, you get to the point now you're wondering if it's ever going to happen. Outside of those two, just about everybody else are veteran players that you're not going to be looking at long term. Fifth one, talk about is the back end playmakers, your defensive backfield. Now, this is one we just talked about the defensive line where the young talent pool is kind of hanging on the shoulders of one player right now. This one is really good and could get a whole lot better depending on what happens to Alontae Taylor. But really, right now, you've got Kool-Aid, McKinstry, and Jonas Sanker locked down and coming in. And to me, I've said this before, the previous coaching staff just, in my opinion, not doing enough to get Kool-Aid and McKinstry on the field last year when there were plenty of opportunities to do so, did the young man a disservice. So he was not quite a rookie this year. You can't say that, but playing time and experience he should have had by the time we kicked off against Arizona to start this season was lower than it should have been compared to what was going on last season, especially on the injury front. So he was starting below where he should have been. Sanker was a rookie at safety, but over the course of the season, and Sanker had to game two was rolling in because of the injury to Blackman that ended his season. I think we've watched two young players grow incrementally. And where you're looking at and going, they're developing on the fly, really. There's a lot of trial by fire with those two. They're handling most of it, and they seem to be getting better. They've had their share of really great moments. They both had their share of New England game jumps to mind as a first indicator of definitely the Rams game where they had their trials and tribulations against two good offenses. But even then, I think at times they could hold their own with that. And I think as learning experience, they're showing they're two really good football players with an understanding of what's going on. So I think the getting better and the development is there. And over the next 7 games, I feel like they're going to confirm it. And walking out of the end of the 2025 season, we're going to say half, 2/5, depending on the amount, probably 2/5, because we seem to be more nickel than not with Staley. We're in great shape there. The guy who's actually would put us in much better shape, and he should have been the guy I'm leading off talking about here, is Alontae Taylor. However, Alontae Taylor doesn't have a contract with the Saints for 2026. He's an unrestricted free agent at the end of 2025, and there was talk about him possibly being traded to the Colts at the trade deadline until the Sauce Gardner deal popped up for the Colts. I don't know how much truth there was to that, but not hearing anything about an extension for him. So not sure if they're letting him test it, if he's in the plans, but I feel like he should be. Feel like maybe also he was one started a little slow to the season, but I feel like he's been kind of catching fire lately, including that great pick he had against Carolina on last Sunday. And he may be the linchpin to this whole deal where you're looking at the majority of our backfield set if you bring him back, where you're really building around him. He's the leader. And the 3 years in the league, kind of primed to do so with two, it looks like really good young players lined up behind him, and potentially a third with Quincy Riley because of the Autumn injury, started playing more and more and is looking like he could conceivably take that spot from Yadam if he hasn't already done so. And now you've got 7 games to learn more about that rookie at the corner. So this is one I think everybody really keeps an eye on. Riley continues to improve and catches and gets on that level with Sanker and McKinstry. 3 really good young players to potentially build around with the possibility of the guy who probably should be the centerpiece and looking for an extension. Unknown right now, but if that happens, and you're looking at those 4 young men, on that defense. With a veteran like Justin Reed, I think year two in a Brandon Staley defense, if that core stays together, you could see some really, really good things going on there. And in the future, going, look, even when Reed moves on, or even if Taylor moves on now, 2 to 3 of those guys are going to be ready to step up 2026, 2027. Give us that good basis on that defense, on that back end. And the thing is, all these players at times have shown they are playmakers. If you can shove 4 to 5 playmakers on that back end on a defense, you'd be really, really scary in the NFL. Just a little touch up, almost like an honorable mention. We didn't talk about running back because going into the season, you kind of had Kendre Miller, and I think that experiment has run its course more than likely, unfortunately. And Devon Neal, who has 7 games, so maybe he will start entering the watch list of guys you want to build around. I don't know if he can do enough in 7 games as a rookie. Basically, he's another one starting off from zero almost. But who knows? Because I think he's going to get a good hard look. Linebacker would be another one, and that one's interesting because I felt it was borderline because you didn't see a whole lot other than special teams play for Stutsman and even Isaiah Stalbird first part of the season. But then suddenly, Werner started losing snaps at times to both of them, where either one was coming in taking some of his snaps. Davis, a few. I don't think it's a lot as much as the notice of Werner, who went around 60 and 50% in some games because Stutsman and Stalbert were grabbing so many. So they're like on the verge of maybe, and over these 7 games, you may see possibly some type of flip going on there, giving Stutsman the real look, giving Stalbert. It's a little different for him because I think they use him a little differently situationally when he's in the field, on the field, but still easily in the conversation. So 2 more to watch that I don't know if you could kind of put on the list as a top 5, but definitely worth mentioning. So that's kind of the 2 spots. Tight end, I think we're set and we're kind of looking like what we're going to be for a while. But Matavea is the rookie, is floating on and off. You never know. Maybe he makes some head popping plays, but I think they're all kind of on an honorable mention watch list almost over these last 7 games, including a player like Boyd that we mentioned and a few others. They have their chances. I really think it's going to be coming up over the next 7 to get in there on however many snaps they can find themselves playing and really start trying to turn some heads, because I expect to see a little more of the younger guys, a little more of the development factor coming in. It would make sense. We'll see how it plays out. So that's my list of guys I think can really, really, really help themselves over 7 games and plant their flags on we're the guys that want to be here and be the centerpieces of this rebuild, with some others, as we mentioned, honorable mention, kind of hanging around on the periphery with a chance to join in that group also. And really, that's what we need to do over these last 7 weeks is find and establish that core group. So there you have it for the essential 7 to 8 names that we really were focusing on. These 7 games are huge, huge for Tyler Shough. I think they're huge for our 2 offensive tackles, Fuaga and Banks, the experience and the development. And I think there's a really good chance you get that from them. There's a position we're going to feel really, really good about in 2026, which is offensive tackle. Olave's trying to nail down that extension. I think he's already done it, but this could be the where he really pops. If he can repeat a lot of what he did in that Carolina game, and like I said, I think the runway is clear for him to do it. We'll all feel better going, okay, we know who number 1 is. Now let's get the complementary receivers in there with him and build a modern NFL receiving core that's diverse enough to be able to handle the offense and the defenses that'll be coming at it. The worrisome one is definitely defensive line. Right now, one somewhat proven guy, and don't know if you've got enough consistency from him to lock it in. He could do that in 7 games and put himself in that Olave position where he's playing for an extension next year. And look, the back end, Taylor being the wild card, that could work out really, really well for the Saints. Quincy Riley off the honorable mention. I think he's going to see an awful lot of playing time, basically almost starting, probably, or starter numbers over these last 7 games, where 2026 we may roll in there with the wild card Taylor coming back in the group and having all 4 of those guys going with Justin Reed over the top going. One position we don't have to worry about spending money in free agency or necessarily drafting need for in the draft. Peace of mind there. Let's go ahead and keep working on fixing everything else. And the honorable mention guys, they may be the hugest of them all because, like talking about Riley, I think any of the other ones could grab enough snaps and turn enough heads where they're going to be entering this conversation come 2026. So, said, let me know down in the comments what you think about the list. Did I miss anyone that should be on it? Should we pull some names off? Let me know. While you're down there, please like, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff for the algorithm. Let's keep the channel growing. This week, 2 videos. The next one will be coming out end of the week, Friday-ish. Look, we're going to break down the Atlanta game, and there's a good chance that some of these conversations that we had may come up again while we're breaking that game down about some of these specific players. Call it a hunch. So, till I see you next time, I'm Tim. Peace out and who dat.